All right. Well, welcome to this webinar, Churches Discipling Children, What Is and Is Not Working with Dr. Arch Wong. My name is Dr. Joel Thiessen. I'm Professor of Sociology and Director of the Flourishing Congregations Institute here at Ambrose University. And this is the third of 4 webinars that we're offering this year. And it's really an opportunity that we're trying here at the Institute to provide short, bite-sized opportunities for you as church leaders, denominational leaders to interact with some Canadian data. So to provide a short 15-minute presentation, to give you an opportunity to interact with some of those findings. And so we'll have about 15 minutes of some Q&A following the presentation. And then for those who are interested in networking with others across the country to discuss some of the things that you're learning and hearing today, there's an opportunity, kind of an optional add-on 15-minute breakout group that will provide you at the end with some questions as well. Just a few logistics as we get going. We are recording this webinar. We'll make this available afterwards. If you subscribe on our website, you'll receive that in your inbox next week. And if you haven't subscribed, please visit our website at flourishingcongregations.org and you can subscribe there. If you have any questions that come up over the course of Dr. Arch Wong's presentation today, I would encourage you to use the Q&A function at the top of your screen. So please don't use the chat function for the purposes of questions, but if you put them in the Q&A section, we'll be monitoring those and then use those to guide some of our conversation afterwards. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Arch, who will lead us in his presentation. So Arch, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Joel. And it's so nice to be with folks. And I am just making some adjustments here. Great. As Joel says, I am a professor of practical theology and the associate director of the Flourishing Congregations Institute. And our topic today is churches discipling children, what is working, and we'll look at some of the challenges in this 15-minute presentation. Now, the webinar today is based on a recent in-depth research project looking at faith transmission and spiritual formation. Spiritual formation of children. And I just want to share with you some of the findings of one congregation. And the congregation is St. John's Anglican Church, which is not its real name, on how this congregation approaches faith transmission and spiritual formation with its children in the ways that they do, what appears to be working or not, and why, some of the challenges, and then at the end, just some implications for us who are here today that represent congregational leaders. In the presentation, I'll also throw in what some of the empirical findings say and also look at some of the literature. So that's sort of the outline for this webinar this morning. And so by faith transmission, folks, I just basically mean efforts to pass on religious identity, religious beliefs, behaviors, and the important things that a faith group expects members to conform to. Now, again, St. John's Anglican Church, again, not its real name. Just to give you a bit of description of the congregation, it averages Sunday worship approximately, I would say, about 200 people, as we made some observations and of the worship service. For that size, it's pretty, I would say, a pretty significant worship attendance for an Anglican parish here in Canada. It's a parish with a long history that has an aging demographic with a good mixture of young families that is located in an established area in a major city here in Western Canada. Now, this research uses a case study approach, which means an inquiry into real life context. And so the real life context in our case is St. John's Church. And so this is the types of things that we did in the case study. So there were interviews, So we interviewed the parish priests, the pastor of children and youth, choir directors, 6 Sunday school teachers, parents, and 1 grandparent. These are the types of observations we did with Sunday school classes, with choir practice, their messy church events, and a youth group event. And we also did content analysis using parish bulletins. We looked at the Sunday school and messy church curriculum. We looked at newsletters and the parish website as well. Now, there are a number of findings from this research project, but I just want to, because of our time, just to focus in on 3 of them today. And some of them are helpful. I hope will be helpful findings. Others may just perhaps normalize context and the things that you might be working through in children's transmission of faith and in children's ministries. So 3 things: the importance of stories and play for children. In terms of faith transmission. So that's the first finding. The second one is parents as primary agents of faith transmission. And then the third is gracious choice. I borrowed that from one of the studies that I'll be showing. I thought that was a good word. So giving children the opportunity to choose faith or not. And so I just want to unpack each of them just briefly here. Now, the first finding, the importance of stories and play for children faith transmission. This finding came mainly from Sunday school teachers and messy church leaders, and also the pastor of children and youth. And this is, I think, one of the hopes of St. John's as children and parents interact during the week. And the pastor of children and youth ministries stated this, and I've put it up here on the slide here. He said, "I would say that right now our program is still growing, but we both, for example, Messy Church is a way in which families can take some time out of their week to come and enjoy not just some official sort of teaching and like direct transmission of knowledge, but I think more importantly, like a meal together, and more importantly, the type of storytelling that engages children to think about faith and what role that might play in their lives." So practically speaking, I would say that Sunday school is a big opportunity for the church to help parents and children have conversations about particular themes that we have through our curriculum that we're using. And so our hope, of course, is that these conversations extend throughout the week. Now, this Sunday school teacher shares this about play, which I found really interesting. I would say that one of the things that has been impressed on me is the importance of play in forming kids and how much exploration happens through play. And so I often think I want my Sunday school classroom led by teachers to be more open-ended and allow the kids to have more conversation in class and be able to play with whatever they want to play with. It's someone, if someone has a question or a comment that's not necessarily directly connected to the topic that we're talking about, this Sunday school teacher says, I'm still willing to explore what it is that they have to say. So I think I would guess that traditionally most churches have had more of a direct transmission style where it's about teaching knowledge in Sunday school. But for me, I want those to be embodied in the stories that we tell and also the conversations that we have in the way that we play with kids. So I don't exactly know what to call our style, but I find it does differ from at least some of the churches that I've grown up as well. Now, I think what this Sunday school teacher is talking about, and here really is what is they call it the Montessori inspired environment. And that, I think, creates a strong foundation so children can become motivated and independent learners who I think eventually be able to transition, hopefully, to successful adults as they continue their education and their development. And so I like some of the principles here. And I think that's what the Sunday school teacher was talking about, providing this safe, this engaging and nurturing environment for children. And it helps children develop trust in themselves and the world. And I would also suggest that it grows confidence in their skills and gain independence. So this background and this approach for this particular congregation, I think, leads to this second finding about the role of parents in faith transmission. Now, finding number 2, parents as the primary agents of faith transmission. Now, the interviews from both the Sunday school teachers and parents, I think, affirm this. And one parent put it this way. Uh, they said that my eldest son, a lot of his friends have been asking him, do you believe in God? Or we don't believe in God, his friends would say, and have been asking and it was my husband. And my biggest surprise is like, yeah, we go to church all the time. I believe in God, and even his friends go. And one of his friends said, my family doesn't believe. And then why do you believe in God? That he goes, and then he thinks about it. This is her son. He thinks about it, and he's like, God's my friend, and he looks out for me. And like even from monsters like in Veggie Tales, there's a song I've taught them, says this mother, like when they're really scared, God is bigger than the boogeyman. And that song, and when they're scared, actually, we say a prayer, and I sing that song to remind them. But I just want them to know, like, to learn the Sunday school lesson to, in a way that they understand, that they know. Like, I feel the world's getting more and more selfish. And then if my kids realize that caring for others is actually how you make the world better, if you make the world better, you become a better person. And like Jesus sacrificed himself to make the world better in that way. So this is the mother of 3 that I quoted here. And what the pastor, children, and youth minister said in the earlier slide about Sunday school being, the big opportunity for church to help parents and children have conversations about particular themes that were taught at Sunday school, extending throughout the week for this parent seemed to be true. So her quote here, I think, brings the point home about this conversation that they're having at home. And the quote is about, again, this mother and son talking about a belief in God, and some of his friends don't believe in God, and what the ways that this conversation is carried out throughout this, I would call this dailiness of life for this particular family. Now, parents as the primary agents of faith transmission is also, I want to kind of bring in the literature here and a number of the recent studies. The study from Rick Heemstra and Lindsay Calloway, I think I saw Lindsay's name there popping up, I think reinforces the role of conservative Protestant parents by saying the consensus among ministry experts was that parents were ill-equipped and rudderless in their approach to faith formation with their children. Parents, by contrast, tend to say that given more time and resources, they would not change anything in how they currently do faith formation with their children. Parental confidence that they were doing a good job with faith formation seems to rise the less they objectively did. And I think the only difference at St. John's is, I don't think the clergy thought that the parents were ill-equipped. Actually, they were quite equipped. Other literature, particularly in handing down the faith, Smith and Adamczak state this, and I thought was quite interesting as well. Yet all empirical data tells us that for intergenerational religious transmission today, the key agents are parents, not clergy or other religious professionals. The key location is the home, not religious congregations. And the key mechanism of socializations are the formation of ordinary life practice and identities, not programs, preaching, or formal rites of passages. Parents who routinely converse with their kids during the week about religious issues of interest are like those who send their children to regular classes. And he gives this metaphor about faith transmission as first language and second language. And so what Smith and Adamchuk are arguing is that we see this cultural shift from religious congregations to the home. And it is the home that is the center of identity and, I would say, value formation. So religion's appeal here is this context shifts from being the place where, for example, the congregation is where one learns revealed and traditional truths that shape a person's, basically to live a good life as defined by that faith. Instead, what is happening is that it appeals, the appeal is promising to improve people's, I would say, quality of life here and now by providing this, foundation for individuals. So this growing, this not growing, but grounding, I would say, for values and good choices and emotional coping and improve relationships. Now, let me talk about the last finding, giving children the opportunity to choose faith or not. And although most of the parents and congregations believe that they should, lead their children to Christ, they didn't want their children to feel this pressure from them to choose faith. A lot of the parents actually we interviewed felt that their parents did not give them religious choice and that they wanted to give that choice to their children. And this Sunday school teacher just shared her experience of this gift of choice from her mother. And this is what she wants for the children that she teaches. And she says, in my household, we don't have any traditional religious practice, such as prayer before meals or anything that when you think of traditional households, ways of expressing it. We definitely don't do that. But how her mother kind of brought me up is I was baptized. Obviously, I had godparents, and they all wrote me little notes explaining how they hope I can grow in faith. But they never put it in a box exactly. They never dictated how they wanted me to express it. And then growing up, dinner table conversations, a lot of the times it was about religion, not necessarily the Anglican religion, but more. Did you hear about this in the news? Or, when I was in school, I learned about this really interesting Hindu concept, and it happened at work that remind me of it. And we would talk about it at the table. And it was more of, I was never forced down my throat in the sense that you must do this. You must participate in this way. It was never, in the name of the Sunday school teacher, you're going to Sunday school. And it's, and the name of the Sunday school teacher was, I'm going to go to church. It was more, would you like to come with me? And I feel that definitely created an atmosphere. Didn't have a resentment for it. I had a curiosity towards it because I was given the option to learn about it. And so you can see that this her experience of this Sunday school teacher was very much invitational in that sense. It's always fun to quote your colleague, and I'm going to quote Joel Thiessen here. And he says, I found that marginal affiliates did or plan to expose their children to religious beliefs and practices, while non-religious individuals were inclined to defer to their children. However, and this is I think the interesting point here from Joel's research, marginal affiliates and non-religious individuals jointly maintain that children should have choice in this matter. Parents did not or plan not to impose religious or secular views on children. Further, one's upbringing informed parental socialization strategies and tactics that were largely informed by prevailing Canadian cultural narratives. So my point here, folks, is that regardless of theological traditions, them being Catholic, mainline Protestants, or conservative Protestants, the data from this study, and I would suggest the academic literature, suggests that parents are the primary agents of faith transmission, as we've seen in finding 2, and children want gracious choice about the faith that they want to follow or not. And I think the reasons for these similarities between, say, Catholics and mainline Protestants and conservative Protestant parents and children is because we live in this broader Canadian culture that is now seeing religion as, I would say, an identity marker. So, folks, parents are parents, regardless if you're Catholic, mainline, or conservative Protestants, or marginal affiliates or non-religious. We do share in this Canadian culture. And just a few things about challenges. And I just put a couple of quotes there. And this is probably not very surprising to many of you. Challenges around volunteerism and resources. And those are the 2 quotes there. You can read through them. One thing that's not working well is constantly the in and out commitments of volunteers to consistency. So that was one issue that this particular congregation faced. And in terms of resources, I think that the church could do more for parents, because we don't get much information. We don't get anything like handouts or even here's something you guys could talk about this week. So resources, some of the parents in the second challenge, and this particularly from this mother of 2 children. And again, these are common challenges that I think all children ministries face, and in some sense, this seems so. I guess I bring it up just to normalize the fact that this is a challenge for everyone. And then just some recommendations and conclusion, folks, about religious transmission. And it's more likely to stick with a number of these points that I put here. Ministry that encourages participation, experiential engagement, leadership and ownership opportunities, service projects, camps and missions trips, community formation with peers, meaningful relationships with non-parent parent adults that could oftentimes act as mentors. Formal Christian education or discipleship development processes, serious and honest engagement, particularly connecting with faith and culture, and programs, enjoyable programming, I think, that engage with children and bring them into these faith formation opportunities. I'm going to stop there.
That's great. Thanks, Arch. The challenge, there's so much content and so much great content that we could unpack. So I think we're going to spend about 10 minutes going through some of the questions that folks have raised. And again, if you have other questions, feel free to add those into the Q&A section. So maybe I'll pick up, Arch, with a question that you kind of alluded to near the end. You have regular attendance at church for many contexts now doesn't mean what it used to mean, right? Folks are showing up once a month, for example. How can congregations possibly hope to disciple children, their families, and form members in this regard when the point of connection seems to be becoming less and less over the course of time? What are your thoughts and observations there?
No, that's a good question, and that certainly came out in the study, and it was normally framed around competition. Let me just put it that way. Many families, have competition, say, with soccer or sports events or skiing. And a lot of that kind of came out. And so with that, I find that this particular parish understands that context. And what they've tried to do is maintain the relationship with those parents and families to make them feel welcome actually when they show up, and not to make them feel bad that they haven't shown up in that sense. So a lot of the responses is, they're dealing with this broader culture where there are other influences. And so oftentimes these other influences are providing what I call these identity markers, right, of development of their particular child. And so my encouragement would be it is what it is, but it's important that maintaining these types of relationships and these welcoming environments and being able to connect with them in various ways. Like this particular congregation, regardless of they advertise their events with social media, so on and so forth, to encourage people and just to let them know that these kind of formational events are present for them. Yeah, that's sort of what the data says, but also I would say on a note for especially if you are working in children and youth ministries, is this welcoming environment.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick up on that, Arch. A
Yeah,
couple
if you could,
questions
please.
of just like best strategies that you've seen for engaging parents or equipping parents or training parents when it comes to their important role in the home. Anything that you've seen in the literature or in your case study here, your work with practitioners that really can help parents in equipping them in this way.
Yeah. At least from this study, the types of things that congregations do with parents, I think, and the types of relationships, like for example, some very, very practical strategies that this congregation uses is that they would have a parents' night where parents actually would get together and meet with each other, because outside of that context, they see each other in church and in worship and just say hi and go by, right? And so these intentional times of getting together, getting to know each other. So the pastor would gather them together in these contexts, and parents actually get to meet each other and have conversations and get to know each other. I think that's the first step in some ways um, to build resiliency in the parents, right? Yeah, that we're not in this alone, and so that's one strategy. Um, as you can see, another strategy from literature is, this congregation didn't provide a lot of information, but they did at times. But I would suggest, if you're giving information to parents, there has to be a consistency and a sustainability to it, and letting them know what is happening. And that quote that I give, particularly with that particular family and that mother, is being consistent and sustaining that, I think, helps in terms of communicating what is actually going on in children's ministries.
Yeah. Maybe a parallel question to this as well then pertains to volunteers. I mean, you noted earlier on that one of the
Yeah.
challenges is a volunteer base. Any ideas, tips, things from research, etc., that might help to strengthen a volunteer base in this regard?
Yeah, what I would suggest there is the quote that I did with the uh, what the what the parish priest said to the children's pastor, like set the bar high. uh, and set the standards that way. And of course, uh, uh, if they have something to reach for, I think it's just helpful, particularly when you're recruiting volunteers. These are the expectations, right? This is what is required of you. I think that's very helpful. The other thing I think the literature also talks about is just about training and providing opportunities to learn more, particularly when we find children in our, say, for example, Sunday school classes, where there's a lot of things going on in terms of um, behaviors or special needs. How do we go about dealing with children that are have ADD? So what type of things do we kind of do with them? The third thing I would also suggest is, and this is really interesting for this particular congregation, it seems to me, is that we think about Anglican worship as very formal and things like that. Children go into worship services. Our observation was really interesting here, is that they come in about halfway through the service, and there's lots of noise, right, with children coming into service and so on and so forth. But this particular congregation was kind of neat in that, that they kind of normalized it. Like, this was okay. In this formal Anglican service, you see children walking back and forth. They're talking to their parents, and they're interacting. And so this particular parish normalized, that children, it's okay. And that reinforces for parents that it's okay. I don't have to like shush my children, and that's just a normal part of the environment. And that took time for that congregation to develop that ethos that says children are welcome here.
Yeah. Maybe two final questions before we transition for those who plan to stick around for breakout discussions. But what does it look like to give children gracious choice while also trying to be deliberate about discipleship with children at the home?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Um, I think in this particular congregation, I mean, they want them to grow up, obviously to know Christ, but to be decent human beings in the world. And I think what it means and what it meant to a lot of them, and what I see in the literature, is we do want to have this open conversation with them for them to make choices, right? I mean, we as parents are hinging on the fact, or we're hinging our bets on, yeah, I hope they choose Christian faith, right? Of course, but we just want to be open to it. I think a lot of that, some of that is, as I mentioned, the angst of the parents who didn't get that choice, and they just want that freedom. In some ways, they want that faith to be their own. So they want their children to own that faith, and that I think will then uh, uh, develop resilience in them, and further, I would say, develop and deepen their faith as they try to transmit that faith to the children in that way. So choice, I think, is always important, but also in our broader Canadian culture, right? There's uh, the whole idea of giving people choices, and of course giving direction and steering them. I'm not saying that we don't interact with children. It's that dailiness of that interaction that I think helps with the choices. It's not like, okay, okay, kids, 30 minutes before we go to the church, and if that's it, then that's not that conversation, and developing in them what the faith is in order for them to make that choice.
Yeah, super helpful. Thanks, Arch. I know there's many other questions that have come in. We don't unfortunately have time to go through all those, but I would say if you've raised a question and you want to probe those further, feel free to write us at the Institute. Can I put you in touch with Arch directly, and happy to engage some of those questions as well. And just really appreciate the great content that you've provided us today, Arch, and lots to think about, lots more to probe, and really just kind of whetting the appetite. As I mentioned at the outset, this is the the third of fourth webinars that we've offered this year. And want to remind you of our fourth and final webinar kind of this academic year with our good friend and colleague, Dr. Katie Steeves, Assistant Professor of Sociology at Trinity Western University, also one of the Associate Directors here at the Institute, who will present on the topic of gender light bulb moments in ministry, Canadian women pastors' experiences of gender inequality. And so that's on offer on March 21st at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time. So I encourage you to register for that. And of course, you can tie into many other things that are ongoing at the Institute on our website. If you haven't registered for updates to receive these right in your inbox, would invite you to do so. We have also just released a new book that includes many of the folks who are presenting in these webinars this year and others, titled The Stories Congregations Tell. And we're going to have more information upcoming about ways that you can interact with this book's findings online, some in-person events across the country. But if you want to access that book, you can scan the QR code on the slide there. You can also visit our website as well, and you get more information about that as well. So finally, and this will be for those who wish to stick around for some breakout group discussions. Here are some questions that are going to guide that. If you are not interested in either further networking or maybe talking more about some of the things that you've heard in today's webinar, this will kind of mark the transition point where we'll end kind of our formal time together. We'll post these recordings online. We'll mail those out as well. But for those of you who wish to stick around, please do so. And in a few moments, we're going to transition into those breakout groups. You may want to take a screenshot of the image before you with the questions as well. And then we'll give about 15 minutes in those breakout groups, and then we'll close those automatically on our side. So you can just kind of self-select out at the end if you conclude sooner than that, but around 15 minutes, we'll actually close those breakout groups. So our thanks again for everyone for joining us today. Super delighted to hear from Arch and from many of you and your questions and stuff. And we will now transition to those breakout groups for discussion around these questions. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you at the next webinar in March.